You have probably seen it all over the various social media pages where you're on, but Kilohearts have made a huge update where they released version 2 of their big plugins and also made all of their small plugins, or most of them, free completely. And that's pretty huge because I always wanted to use a lot of them and just never had enough spare money to just spend it on the plugins, especially lately with all of the rising prices and everything. Anyway, now that they are free, I can actually check them out. And yeah, I also made a sample pack, and this sample pack will be very useful for checking out different effects now, even though it consists mostly of drums. But let's just find something and drag it in here. Yeah, why not? Let's go. I want to use why? Okay, I don't understand why this drop-down menu doesn't recognize the bounds of the application, but anyway, I know that there's the repitch mode. I just hope I never have to open a drop-down menu that is even lower than this. Okay, that's nice. Now let's go and just check out different plugins. We're starting with a 3-band EQ. Now, I lately saw a video on a different 3-band EQ, not the one of Kilohertz, I think, or was it the one in Kilohertz? But it revealed that a certain 3-band EQ, I think it was the one in Ableton, is actually a multiband, not compressor, but a multiband splitter instead of an equalizer. And since this also looks a bit like adjusting crossover frequencies, I want to take this opportunity to check if this is also a multiband splitter in real life. See if we can actually find some evidence for that. So this looks just like you would expect a normal curve, EQ curve to be. So I think this is not a multiband splitter, especially because it does not have phasing when turned down completely. So yeah, this is definitely an equalizer. With very wide crossover frequency, and it's just the same as it's displayed in the UI. So I can actually get rid of the EQ curve analyzer and only trust the AI at the UI here. Now, one thing about Kilohearts plugins is that you often ask yourself, why is there no gain control? And the reason for that is because they want you to use their ecosystem stuff like Snapheap, because then you could put it here and then use the output gain of the whole bus. Yeah, by the way, this is Snapheap version 2, so you can see that it kind of changed a little bit. Snapheap always had 4 bars of serial chains, and now it has even more. And yeah, it also has a bunch of other new features. And if you have been active on YouTube lately, then you've probably been spammed with a lot of live streams showcasing that way better than I could now. So let's just not do that. Yeah, equalizer. So yeah, not sure if I would use that a lot, because I can also just use Pro Q when I want to equalize something and have more control. But what's cool about using this in the context of Bitwig is you can just skip using a snap heap and just use the normal chain for that, gain control. And that also makes a lot of sense. So now next up we have the Bitcrusher. Yeah, cool Bitcrusher. It definitely has some extra features like ADCQ and DACQ. I didn't even read the tooltips, but they have an interesting aesthetic quality as well. Like, it seems like more of a lo-fi thing than this, because usually Bitcrushers are all crunchy, and that's just the digital kind of aesthetic. But these kind of things also muffle the sound a bit and go more for a general lo-fi aesthetic, it seems, which is cool. Now the chorus effect. Okay, this is not a good sound for checking out the chorus, but I know that I also have something more harmonic in here. Gotta say, I'm a little bit disappointed by two things. First of all, there is no innovative stuff in here. Like, most Kilohearts plugins have one or two parameters that are a little bit different than what you usually expect from these kinds of effects. And this seems to be very basic. Gotta say, the sound is really cool though. Good sound quality and everything, and good workflow. So that is still good. And the second thing is that the mix knob on 50% makes the signal a little bit quieter, and that is actually an issue that can be solved very easily by just using equal loudness curves in the dry-wet processor. So I think Kilohearts should have figured this out by now. So that is a little bit sad, but apart from that, it's a good sounding chorus, and due to it having a good workflow and everything, I think I will actually use it. And yeah, let's go on. Now the next thing is a comp filter. Okay, I don't know, it would have been cool if there was a feedback parameter in here, since it's a comp filter and everything, which usually have feedback amounts as well. Not really sure if I'm like overseeing something here, but it doesn't look like there is a feedback control. Anyway, the problem is, sorry Kilohearts, but there is also this plugin which is also free, and it has a feedback control, and it even has cool extra features like using MIDI input to determine the frequency instead of hertz, which is actually like very creative. And yeah, I know your stuff is creative in other ways usually, but I would say that your best plugins are different ones. Actually, that's also one of the reasons why I didn't have bought all of the ones before, because there were always one or two things where I thought, well, maybe that's not really what I need. And but I'm pretty sure we will come across some of the stuff that is actually really, really cool. So now we have the compressor. I want a different sound to test the compressor, something that has a bit more different stuff going on. Oh yeah, that's very dynamic. There are different dynamics going on in this one. Yeah, I can see that this is really cool. It has 3 different modes. Peak, which is obviously good for drums. Fast, which is also good for drums and all kinds of stuff, but it sounds more crushy. And RMS for the more natural kinds of stuff. Let's check out the RMS thing. Yeah, pretty cool. Like, there are some things missing, like no auto gain. Auto gain is always very useful in a compressor, even though considering that it's wrapped around some containers and stuff. The Kilohearts stuff would be cool to have. Also, what was I thinking earlier? Yeah, when using the fast mode, I wish there was a pre-EQ for the envelope follower. That could be done by using the sidechain. Like, I could use a layer and then have sort of a sidechain layer, and in this layer I would prepare an equalizer or something, and then I could use the other layer. Let's say the compressed layer. Oh no, I don't want to instantiate a plugin here. I want to just drag the chain here. The compressed layer, and now I could probably just use the input from the sidechain layer, sidechain post, and now yeah. Oh wait, I have to actually keep this at 0 but then hit mute. Yeah. Wait. Why? Wait. So that mean okay, the output of this one, not the output of the whole chain. And you can see how that would now react more to the low end or react more to the high end, depending on what I actually want. So you can set up stuff like that. And then it's cool. And obviously it's a good design decision to not put everything that you can do into the UI itself. If you can also do it with other third-party plugins and structures like this, if it's not getting too much out of hand with the workflow. Yeah, so the compressor has a good sound, very useful. Now let's go on with Convolver. I already had Convolver, I gotta say, because it's a really cool plugin. One thing that I always disliked about this plugin is the preset browser, because you always have to put it into the upper edge so that you can see everything about the browser, which is not ideal. It would be better if they found a way to stick to the same bounds, so that I can just scale it up and then open, and it would use these bounds for the preset browser as well, so that I can be safe that wherever I have the plugin, I can always open the preset browser. But what this plugin is actually good at, it's a very magical plugin. Is that you can just throw stuff at it. And if you are also a Bitwig user, that might not be too much of a magical thing to you, because you can do that in a new convolution plugin in Bitwig as well. And it even looks pretty similar in my opinion. But since this is a Kilohearts video, I will stick to the Kilohearts one now. And yeah, maybe we can make a little comparison later. But first of all, let me drag this sound at it, which is sort of a dubby percussion thingy. Yeah, so, you know, convolution. Just as we know convolution, it just imposes a certain new character to a sound, and you can just say the character of that sound, it should be sort of mixed into that sound, and then it will happen. And with very useful additional features, like limiting the range of the sample that is used, using a little bit of fades, and actually not stretching, but resampling it to different pitches. This is named incorrectly. And a feedback knob, which usually just adds a bunch of ringing. Tone control, mix control, so very useful. And they actually put a mix control in here instead of forcing you to use a chain for that, or snap heap, which is very nice, but they forgot about the gain knob again, or maybe not forgot, but just didn't do it. But I will come to this later, why this was a weird decision to not put gain knobs in all plugins. You will see that. Now if we compare that to the one in Bitwig itself, we can see that, well, first of all, the window, it is scaled differently a little bit. You can see the sample looks differently in the one in Kilohearts UI, and I think the Kilohearts UI tells you more about what's going on in the signal than the window in Bitwig. It just looks more like what I see down here as well. But yeah, that doesn't throw me off too much. Now let's check out the sound. Now one thing that I don't like about this convolution plugin is that you can't zoom on this interface. Like if I wanted to be more precise about the exact range of stuff that I want to have in here, I would have to edit the sample first and then drag it in again so that I can have a better resolution of what's going on. But what's cool here is some convenience features like gain and stereo width and even a little pre-delay, which can be very useful. And yeah, the way they made the fades also a little bit more advanced than in Convolver. So that's pretty cool. I like that. And I like both of these plugins a lot. Now going on with Kilohearts delay. So this is basically the comp filter with the feedback. Now let's check out the comp filter again. And we can see that it's, well, it has a display in hertz and not in milliseconds, so it's really hard to compare. But there is definitely some crossover here. So when you go really deep on this, then we start to hearing a frequency. We can try to replicate that here. I don't know, it's really hard to hear the frequency when you cannot dial in feedback, but I guess it's somewhere around this or so. So we cannot go deeper in the Kilohearts delay. But yeah. This is deep enough for some robotic action. Hello? gives me a little idea. I really like the ducking effect. It's very easy to use, doesn't have attack and release parameters or anything, so you cannot adjust it a lot. But that also makes it very easy to use. Let's see, audio sidechain with the same sound. Yeah, pretty cool. With a bit more care, this would make a lot of sense, I guess. And of course, with a loop, that sounds a bit more tacky. So let's go back and check out the sync mode. Okay, I gotta say that that's not too useful because you cannot put anything into the signal chain, since in Bitwig itself you have this delay, and then you can just put anything into the signal chain, like maybe a plugin by Valhalla. So just put another delay into your delay, why not? Or did I say signal chain? I meant feedback path. And I don't even start talking about the new delay that they added, which is even better because it makes things a little bit more concise and stuff. And you can dial in some diffusion without even having to have a diffusion plugin in the feedback path, which is super useful. So yeah, delays really delays are getting very competitive lately, so it's really hard to say that you can just make a little delay and then it's enough. Now let's check out the distortion module. Okay, one thing that I continuously notice here is that I keep having to touch the UI of Bitwig in order to get my spacebar back. So please, Kilohearts, if you're watching this video, whatever you have in your code that restricts the or that consumes the spacebar in your plugins, please turn that off. It is so annoying. Bitwig has no way around it. I know some DAWs do that, like in Cubase. It doesn't matter which plugin you load. It will always register the spacebar as the thing that stops playback. But in Bitwig, for some reason, if the plugin consumes the spacebar, then the DAW will not use the spacebar itself. And yeah, if Bitwig developers are watching, please stop doing that. It is so annoying. And if Kilohearts developers are watching this, then please also stop doing that. It is so annoying, especially because the spacebar has no function in your plugins. So please stop do that now. Like right now, I'm so annoyed right now. Okay, the second thing that is annoying me is that there is no gain parameter in this plugin, because obviously this is a distortion plugin and you definitely want to pull the gain down after distorting stuff. apart from that, this plugin is really nice. I really love the way stereo spread is done by just applying a different wave shaper to each channel, and the dynamics parameter can really crush some stuff. And I love how some of these distortion modes make the snare sound like it's made of tin or something. So this is really, really cool. It's a cool plugin, and in combination with the chain that has a gain knob, I will definitely use that. Dynamics. Now we come actually to the point that I was talking about, where I told you that I'm confused why they don't put output gain knobs in all of their Snapins, because this thing has one. And then I'm asking myself, why does this thing has an output gain knob and the other one's not? More about that later. Let's first try out the sound. I will show you something that I really like about dynamics. As you can see, you can use it very well to separate the sounds from whatever is in the background, because you can use it as an expander. Only problem with this is that it does not have Lookahead. Like if you compared that with Pro and B. Oops. I had to add another instance of Pro MB after this one, because Pro MB doesn't let the expander go too low for some reason. Maybe because it's meant for mastering purposes more than creative sound design, and Kilohearts is just known for a little bit more drastical measures. So I would still say Kilohearts dynamics is very useful in many cases. But dialing in Lookahead on an expander sadly often makes sense, because if you want to use it on drums, you want to preserve the transients. And that's why I often have to, after I started using Kilohearts dynamics and stuff, I have to put it away again and use Pro MB. And it always feels like overkill, because Pro MB is a multi-band effect and it has so many more features than Kilohearts dynamics. And I only have to use it because this one is missing the Lookahead feature. So that's always a little bit, I always feel like, oh no, I have to add the whole powerhouse just for one little feature. But it's really like that sometimes. And only if the stuff that I'm expanding is not too percussive, I actually be able to use Kilohearts dynamics instead, like maybe vocals or something. But it's not that you have to expand vocals so often. So expanders are really heavily used on percussive stuff in most opinions. So yeah, Ensemble. Okay, this seems to be a chorusy thing. Honestly, this is way better than the Kilohearts chorus. Not just because of the fancy UI, but oh, you can even change the amount of voices. Wow. It's just such a nice sound. That's fancy. By the way, this is an excellent moment for me to showcase one of my own self-made plugins, which is Nell Orbit. And it's also a chorus modulation plugin. And there are these planets. And these planets, they sort of gravitate towards each other constantly. You can enhance the gravitational constant in order to make them gravitate even harder. It also speeds them up though, so sometimes you have to slow them down with the space mod again. And anyway, it sounds like this. So yeah, you can also get different textures with this. And yeah, it's basically a similar concept. You have just weird geometrical objects and they make a chorus effect with in some weird way. So it's funny that the Kilohearts team had a similar idea. Now let's go on. Kilohearts filter. Alright, I love that. Now let's try something different here. Because what I often do in my own music is I sidechain the audio from some drums to something harmonic and then use a filter on that. And I want to try that here again in order to just test how good it reacts to that. Because sometimes filters are too slow for that kind of stuff, and that's always very sad. Now I need better naming for the tracks so that I understand what I'm doing. Okay, drums post. Now let's go. Oh wow, if I understand that correctly, then this is an ultra fast filter. Let's compare that with Rift Filter Lite. Actually, let's make sure that we use the same modulation on both of these so that it's a fair comparison. So we use the same frequency. I know from filter to filter it can be a little bit different what that means, but like we're just trying to do it something a little bit more or less fair. We can also not match the Q factor with the resonance control of Rift because we just don't know what it really is. But anyway, let's just do it. Find a setting here. And now try to find a similar setting in Rift. Okay, so it seems like Rift smooths out the input values a little bit more. You don't get a lot of this brrrt fizzle, but the brrrt fizzle can be cool too. And I actually liked it a little bit more on this example because it sounds very creative. But it can also be that in some cases I just like the Rift one more because it sounds so round. And still, both of these filters are super fast, and that makes them very modern. I love it. That's a great plugin. Let's go on. Kilohearts Flanger. Yeah, cool flanger. Yeah, I already had the flanger. Once won it in a competition. No, it was not a competition. It was what is the English word for that? That you just say that. It was. I don't know the word now, but you know, on Facebook they sometimes make these things where you can just say that you want to have the plugin, and then you have to give it a reason, and then they will do it by chance that 3 people can then have it. And I think they just want to have the reasons for fun. Now the Formant Filter. Nice Formant filter, definitely. It's really hard to make a good Formant filter because obviously there are always a lot of different types of vowels, and it's hard to sort them in a cool way. And even this looks like very weird, but I think it has a good workflow, and that's all that matters. Let's go on with the Kilohearts frequency shifter. Okay, cool. It's a frequency shifter. That's clear already. Now let's try it on something where it makes a little bit more sense. The reason why it makes more sense here is because frequency shifters are often used on single hits, where you just want to change the fundamental frequency of some tone to match more with the rest of the music, like snares or something like that, when they have not been tuned very well, or when they are just samples and you want to post-process them. Like, I could take anything now. Yeah, let's just take this. It sounds a little bit tonal. And I could pretend like that is the stuff that I want to have in here. Let's actually put it a little bit somewhere else, because there is this bell sound here that's a little bit in the way. Let's actually go here. And now we're going to use the frequency shifter to match this sound with the beat a little bit more. And yeah, oops, that's the wrong plugin. This one is also really cool, by the way, but it's not really a frequency shifter. Okay, so, but before I'm doing that, you might ask yourself, well, why not just pitch this to a different pitch in the sampler? And the reason for that is because drum samples often have a high end, and when you're selecting a drum sample, you often go by the high end and think, oh yeah, that's the kind of crunch that I want. Then you're importing it and notice, oh, the fundamental frequency doesn't work, but you want to keep the high end. And you could do a multiband split, but then you would always have this weird discrepancy between the high end and the low end part, which have a completely different signal chain, and the crossover frequency becomes very apparent, and the frequency shifter is often a more natural approach. Okay, so let's check this out. See, that's basically still the same sample, but with a different fundamental frequency, so to say. Of course, there are also some other subtle differences here and there, but that's basically how it feels to use, and that's why frequency shifters are cool. Now let's go on with the next thing, which is Kilohearts gain. Now, Kilohearts gain, I have sometimes tried to use it a little bit for stuff like turning things on and off, and that's what it's not good for, because it only has minus 30 decibels. So if you're wearing headphones now, you can still hear the vibe sound. In percentage mode, you can do that though. Okay, now that we have percentage mode in, we can try something different. We can like maybe use audio sidechain on the drums. Let's take these other drums for that. Now the problem is not the gain plugin itself, but it's more like the sidechain feature, the envelope follower in Bitwig, because it's not a very smooth sidechain. Even though you can use like filters on the signal, you cannot use filters on the output envelope before it goes to the parameter, and that's obviously a huge shame, because that makes it sort of unusable for moments like this sometimes. But the core concept of this modulator is pretty cool. And yeah, you can do something like that a little bit. I don't know what else I could use a gain plugin for. Obviously, it was made for the snap heap and multipass ecosystem, where you can use it in the signal chain to just change the gain. But then again, as I said before, I'm not quite sure why the Kilohearts dynamics thing has an output gain, when you are expected to use this gain for everything that is gain matching. Some people might say, yeah, it's a compressor. Compressors always have in and output gain. But the thing is that the logic of input gain in the compressor is because it's a non-linear process, and the output gain actually just changes the volume, how it comes out. And that is the same as if you had a Kilohearts gain after the Kilohearts dynamics without out gain. And that's why they could have left this out and just put a different parameter in there, maybe Lookahead, and then call it a day or something, which would have made more sense. with the consistency of all of the plugins together. Now the gate. Okay, this is not sound for gates. Let's try the drums actually. Wow, I love this flip feature because it's sort of like the Delta button in Oak Sound plugins. It shows you what you have done. It shows you only the stuff that got away. And then you can really listen to this little click that appears when the gate opens or closes, and you can tweak the attack and release parameters to that. That's a feature that I would wish more gate plugins had. I can already say that after just discovering it. Of course, cool sidechain feature. And finally, a Lookahead feature, which actually works very well. So apparently Kilohearts can do Lookahead, so please add Lookahead to the other things where it makes sense. Now, quick Kilohearts Haas effect. Okay, so it's a Haas effect, of course. If you don't know the Haas effect, Google it or something. It's basically some sort of stereo enhancer that uses a very short delay that is so short that you cannot perceive it as a delay with human ears, in order to create the illusion of something being panned a little bit to the left or to the right, even though it still has both have the same volume, both channels. Oh, no, you don't have to Google it anymore because I told you. But you might still want to Google it because there is some problems with this effect in the professional mixing context that I don't want to go into it. But I personally like the Haas effect, and it's always cool to have on some background sounds. Now ladder filter. Okay, I want to listen to this filter a little bit more closely. So let's actually make a group of all of these sounds and just instantiate it on the group. Kilohearts ladder filter. Who doesn't love ladder filters? They, with their dirty sound, they are always like very welcomed on creative purposes. Let's go on with the limiter. Yeah, the limiter is more of a convenience feature to me. Like sometimes when I'm testing plugins, I put a Kilohearts limiter at the end in order to make sure that it doesn't blow up my speakers if I made a mistake or something. But I don't know if I would use it in a production because it doesn't have attack like most mastering limiters and stuff. It's more like a brick wall one. And yeah, I don't know if I actually use brick wall limiters. I would probably rather use a clipper for that, because then I can just say, yeah, threshold, and then that's the limit, and that's it. Or I can add a curve for that or something, and that's it. Even though I gotta say this looks much nicer. But usability wise, clippers are what I use there. And Now let's go on with the nonlinear filter. I already had this effect, it's really cool. So you can hear that it's actually a saturated or distorted filter, just like the ladder filter, but it has even more modes. I will just show you all of them. Fuzzy one is my favorite because it sounds so crushed. The high end. Even though in this example I think I like the biased one most. Because it has this thing going on below the cutoff frequency where some of the things go down and some will go up, and you can hear that, and then it sounds like very pleasant sound actually. So let's go on with phase distortion. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like the sound. By the way, I also made a phase distortion plugin. It's called Nell, or actually it is a vibrato, and I made a lot of videos about how it can do phase distortion already. But in my plugin I called it audio rate, because phase distortion is nothing but audio rate modulation on a vibrato. And in my plugin, just a little recap if you have not seen it yet, it works like this. You're making a MIDI track where you define the melody of the phase distortion, and then you send the MIDI track to the plugin. I don't know, that depends on the way that works in your DAW, but in Bitwig it works by putting a note receiver on the same track where the plugin is and tell it, yeah, grab the MIDI from that track, and then it will do that. And then the plugin automatically has that MIDI. And then you got phase distortion in Nell. Which is funny, because if you turn it down to a very low octave, then you can hear that it's actually a vibrato. And stuff like that. Links in the description. Let's go on now with the next Kilohearts plugin, which is Phaser. It's a good sounding phaser, but I'm kind of missing a tempo sync rate mode here. Like my favorite phaser at this point is the Phases one by Native Instruments, and it does have this feature, and also some other interesting features like changing the behavior of the individual notches, which can make a lot of sense in some cases. And just this visualization also, that just shows you what's going on instead of just guessing. And I know the Kilohearts team can do that too, because they made Kilohearts Ensemble, so they could just do something for phaser as well. That would make a lot of sense. But one other thing that I always like to do in phasers is turning down the depth and just controlling the cutoff frequency all by myself. That can actually be really useful. Like, say we have that on the harmonies, and then we audio sidechain from the drums, and then it can become very useful. Very sweet sound immediately. So let's go on. Kilohearts, pitch shifter. This is very interesting. I love this compensation feature, because you can really hear how when mixing it with dry wet mix, it sort of makes the sound much more full, because it can compensate for the latency rather than just, you know, putting out the non-latency compensated signal together with the dry signal. And yeah, the problem often with pitch shifters is you want to put the grain size down a lot so that you get a tight sound, but then the pitch is in danger. But in this plugin it was solved by adding jitter, which adds some pitch fluctuations, which, yeah, you know, it sounds a little bit like a crazy vibrato, but at least it sort of masks the issues of the grain size. So that's actually a feature that makes a lot of sense in this context. For example, if we compare that with a pitch shifter built into Bitwig, it sounds like this. So you can also turn down the grain size. It's actually in the other direction in this plugin, but you always have this little issue that it sounds a bit weird, and that's only 12 tones up. Now let's go 24 up, just like we had in Kilohearts. So that's basically not possible anymore. I love this pitch shifter as well, I gotta say, because pitch shifters, I often don't even use them to shift pitch, but only to add crazy high-end harmonics, and that's what they definitely always do, no matter if they work good for pitch shifting or not. But this is actually one that you can use to just say, yeah, I actually want to have plus 24 semitones on this thing somewhere. So that's pretty cool. Let's go on. Kilohearts Resonator. Yeah, that's cool too, I guess. I should have kept the MIDI track there for testing purposes, because I want to know if you can send MIDI information to this plugin or not. If you can, then that's pretty cool. If you cannot, then it should be added, because obviously this very melodic sounding effect, and in such case I always think like, okay, we need some actually melody on that. So no, the Kilohearts resonator does not take MIDI into account when resonating. So that's definitely a feature that I would suggest for the next version of Kilohearts resonator. Let's go on. But you know, resonator could still be used for different stuff, maybe. It's just that there are also plugins like Flare, which are actually a Flanger. But they are also sort of resonators, because you can do this. So as you can see, you can literally put different chords here and different pitches. And I also gotta say, if the Native Instruments developers are watching, please make a new version of Flare where you can just send polyphonic MIDI to it instead of having to use any knob for this kind of stuff. Because the basic idea of this is great, but it could just be a little bit easier even. Yeah, and Kilohertz could go into the same direction, why not? There are not enough plugins like that yet. Now, Kilohertz Reverb. Okay, I lately made a video where I compared Vital to Serum, and I criticized Vital for not letting me modulate the size parameter. I can only say the same about the Kilohearts reverb. I have never made my own reverb yet, so I cannot say how hard it is to actually let a size parameter be modulatable. But I can just say, if you make a company that kinda that has the image of huge modulation systems, then you probably want to have all parameters modulatable without scratchy sounds. So Vital and Kilohearts are both companies that are known for this kind of approach. So they should definitely put more love into their size parameters when it comes to reverbs. And yeah, Serum does it right. I can only say Serum does it right. So whenever people come to me and say, yeah, Vital is free, or even this Kilohearts stuff is free, so why would I pay for stuff? Then I can only say there seems to be still a reason why some things cost a lot of money, because such details are then in it. Now, Kilohearts Reverser. That's pretty cool. I like this plugin. Maybe it would be even better if it also had Lookahead, because now the notes come too late, because they have to have come before they can be reversed by the plugin, of course. But if there was Lookahead, then it could be compensated for that. And now that might be something where some people would say that they draw the line, because if this thing had Lookahead, then it would even have to compensate for a very slow rhythms, like whatever you can put here. This seems to be the slowest reversion. Yeah, that's so slow that it doesn't even start playing for a bunch of bars. Probably for a lot of bars. I don't want to calculate that now by hand, but this is probably just a terrible idea. Anyway, if this thing had Lookahead, it would have to have actually this size of Lookahead, so sort of multiple bars of latency. And most people would just say, what? When that happens in their DAW, and that's probably why they didn't add it. But for very small reverses like 4th notes, 8th notes, or 16th notes, it would actually give you a good workflow to have a Lookahead feature in it. Let's go on with the ring modulation. Okay, actually, let's try something different again. No, let's... Oh, wait. Yeah, I know what we're going to do. I know what we are going to do. It's going to be so cool. Yes, 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 yes. Oh my god, yes. It's going to take a bit of a while now. But I just had a cool idea. You probably all remember this song by Billie Eilish, where she said something and then there was a huge 808 bass line that sort of said, that has made her voice shake. And a lot of people on Facebook have claimed that this is a tremolo effect. But I actually thought it was a ring modulator. And I just saw that this ring modulator has... it has a sidechain input, and that's why I want to use that to make something similar now. I just need a little trappy groove. Okay, that's trappy enough. Could be more trappy, but you know. Now I need something like an 808 stuff. Yeah, that's total 808. Okay, it doesn't have to be the best melody of all time, but we have something that sounds a bit 808-ish, and now we need a fancy word that we can sing, like okay, that's when I have to come up with something on the fly while knowing that I'm being recorded with the intention of uploading it to the whole world, and it's like but anyway, okay, I don't know actually. Yeah, whatever. Good enough. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Okay, that actually doesn't make a lot of sense because the bass line only starts there. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Okay, let's just use that and pretend like that makes a lot of sense rhythmically. First of all, I have to make it mono. Yeah, basic setting. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Okay, now we have a good enough vocal sound, and we can actually try the ring modulator on it. The ring modulator.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever.
First of all, just with the sine oscillator.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. First of all, I gotta say, putting a rectifier on a sine wave in ring modulator, I have never considered that before, but it makes so much sense because it gives back some of the speech intelligibility into the sound. Also some sort of a grainy nature, like a Bitcrusher or something, but it still has this ring modulator flavor. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. I don't know actually what the bias is good for. It sounds a bit weird, but I really love the rectifier. Now what do we have here? Low pass noise. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Let's actually put ODT after the effect so that we get a consistent volume. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Low pass noise is a bit weird. Band pass noise. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. That's also a bit weird. Just sounds like noise. I don't know what the reason is.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. That's a very interesting tonal quality. I don't quite understand it yet, but it's sort of gives you very interesting controls about the sound. I like it. Now let's go on to the sidechain input, the thing that is most important and interesting here when we are now taking the 808 post. Yeah, whatever. 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 whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so now it really starts to make sense. When you pick notes that are low enough, like so low that they are barely that are barely audible still, then the oscillation of the bass frequencies gets so low that you can actually hear the frequency in your vocals then as well. And this rectify knob really does a good job of making this even more extreme by just saying that everything is zero, that is not going upwards. And yeah, that is exactly what I wanted to create here. So this is very useful, definitely, and very fun as well. Now let's go on with the next plugin, which is Kilohearts Stereo. Okay, yeah, I don't think I will. Actually, I have to take that back. I will use it because I didn't notice it first, but this is actually cool. You can turn off the mid channel. Usually when I want to do that, I use Stereo Helper because there is also a side only thing. And stuff like that. You can do similar stuff here, but you cannot enhance the stereo width by 600%. And also you have to consider one thing when you're using plugins like this. Also on Imager, it has this nice visualization which always shows you how it looks like while also showing you what it sounds like. And of course you should trust your ears, but it can be very useful to see the shape. And it has two different modes for stereoizing stuff, which can be useful as well. Especially considering that both of these stereo-wise modes don't really introduce a lot of phasing or stuff. It sounds very natural when you are trying to listen to it in mono afterwards. So you can actually use it to make mono things stereo. And that can be useful too. So it's really hard nowadays to make to still make a widener plugin that finds its way into the workflow of people with ozone imager being a thing. Now tape stop. That is the best workflow that I ever saw in a tape stop plugin. Kilohearts Trance Gate. Okay, I think the Trance Gate might make sense a lot on like pads and stuff. On this particular sound where there's also drums, it became very noticeable that when dialing in the attack knob, it let through a little bit of the transient. And yeah, it's another example of something where a bit of Lookahead would make sense. Now let's go on with Kilohearts Transient Shaper. Yeah, the Transient Shaper looks and sounds good as well. Also sidechain input, so I could use something else to trigger the motion, which can be useful, I suppose. Maybe as a sidechain thingy. Let's try that. Let's actually use Kilohearts Transient Shaper on the vibe, even though the vibe itself does not have something that we would consider as transients. But then let's go and take the drums with sidechain. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I put 3 of them in a row and it still doesn't go very deep with the pumping. So a Transient Shaper for pumping is maybe not a very good choice. They are kind of slow for that kind of stuff. But it's always nice to have a little Transient Shaper. I'm personally always very critical with Transient Shapers because sometimes when you have very dynamic drums, they only hit on some of the hits and don't do that on the other ones. And it's often not very hard to find an example for that. But they can make sense on simple drums like 4 to the floor thingies like this. Let's try this example. It's kind of complex sound a bit. So this could actually expose the limits of the Transient Shaper, because it's usually the case in Transient Shapers. Actually, no, sounds good also on this sound. So yeah, it's a good Transient Shaper. It has a good way of detecting transients without having to dial in multiple parameters. You can directly jump into the parameters that make sense, like pump and sustain, and that you want to adjust. Yeah, pretty cool. Now, I think there was all of them, but I'm a little bit confused now why Disperser didn't show up. Oh, because Disperser doesn't have Kilohertz in the name for some reason. Yeah, Kilohertz, Disperser is not one of the free plugins, by the way, but it can really make sense to have Disperser in your arsenal as well if you don't have already. Also for lighter percussion. Can make things bubbly. Which is always pretty cool because first of all, bubbly sounds are nice, and secondly, sometimes transients can be a little bit harsh, and then you can round them off a little bit. It can make sense if you don't turn up the amount a lot, even in subtle mixing contexts and stuff like that. Anyway, these were all of the Kilohearts plugins. I hope that you got a good idea of what you can do with it, what you can't do with it, and how awesome it is that there's a ton of new plugins out there now that you can just have on your hands. And I hope that some of the developers of Bitwig and Kilohearts also came around and checked it out the video, because I showed some of the stuff that is really not perfect yet. And yeah, I mean, what stops you from just making it perfect now? It's most of the things that I said are not really hard to accomplish. And you know, some of the stuff was a little bit critical, like whether or not a reverser should have Lookahead, because the Lookahead would be really long. But some of the stuff was actually pretty easy to understand, like why a compressor would want to have Lookahead and stuff. And all the stuff that I don't think of anymore right now. Now, I would like to encourage everyone to just try it yourselves and build your own opinion, of course, because you can always watch me and check out my opinion. But ultimately, you just have to feel how it feels to use the plugins yourself. And I would like to encourage you to only watch stuff like my videos for entertainment purposes and not to form your ultimate opinion on stuff. Anyway, see ya.